Edward, how they ask me questions and remind me of the stories of Baba. Because with the advancing age, I seem to forget many stories unless and until somebody reminds me of them.
Well, we can begin with one, Eruch, and that is how you became to be the interpreter of Baba's hand signs and hand gestures.
Well, there is no story behind this. You ask me that we should begin with how I became the interpreter of Baba's hand gestures and signs. Well, I can't recall a particular day when I became one. It was so natural. It seems to me that I was one of the mandali by Baba's side. And when Baba used to use his board, sometimes when the ones who were reading Baba's board failed in trying to decipher Baba's fast moving finger over the board, giving out the words, I used to butt in and pronounce the word. So it must have happened once, twice, thrice, 4 times, till a day came when people who were around Baba found that I could read the board. So I started reading the board. Baba encouraged me. And that's how I first started reading the board.
Do you remember one of the first messages that you read?
Oh, no. I remember any first messages that I read from Baba? No, it's impossible. Because it was so natural, you see. It was just one day, that's all, that I began to read. I may not have read the first message. I may read out some first admonition given by Baba to somebody. Who knows? Then it so happened, you see, that for years together, when I was in presence of Baba, I had the privilege of reading Baba's board. During the must tours, or during the visits to the West, or during his visits in India, either for giving mass darshans to the public here, or paying house visits, I had to be very alert. It was Baba's patience alone that carried me through, because on many an occasion I would fail to read Baba's fast-moving finger on the board. And through his infinite patience, he would repeat the same words again and again, till I picked up the right message. Many years rolled by, and it so happened with the years that passed by, my eyes began to get tired. And Baba would often tell me that he was himself fed up of his silence because he had to interpret his thoughts through the alphabet board. Then he started giving me assurances, month after month. Then it became weeks, and then one day, Baba said he would drop using the board. And it was just a surprise to me, because many a time Baba had told me that he would stop using the board. Of course, it was a sort of a relief when I heard that. Little did I know the repercussions of Baba stopping the use of the board. The day he stopped using the board, everything came to a standstill. Baba wouldn't condescend to even say out anything. It was very, very difficult for us to converse with Baba without the board. We became helpless, and our beloved Baba, who was continuing his silence, remained helpless without the board. A day passed, another day passed, and then we had to beg of Baba to find out some other ways or means through which he could communicate to us what he wanted. Of course, there were the usual gestures of Baba for tea, say, suppose. He would do just this for tea. Then for water, he would do this. For milk, he would do this. Those could be followed, you see. But then what about the regular conversation? Day after day, we missed that. So I think it was on the second or the third day, we pressed Baba to give us some outlet. And then he said there was nothing more to be said. There was nothing more to be conveyed to the world. He had given so many things out through his alphabet board in his silence. But then I was hearing certain rumors, you see, that he was going out on tours and that he would be meeting the public, you see. He would give audience to the public. And I was feeling very, very sad as to how would it be possible for me to communicate whatever Baba wanted to the people, or to the group, or to a family, or to an individual who approached Baba, or who would remain in Baba's presence even for a minute. I was the one who was most anxious that Baba should drop using the board, so that it would give rest to my eyes and the concentration that I had to have at the time of reading the board. Just as Baba expressed that he was fed up with the silence, so was I must tell you frankly, fed up with reading Baba's board. But then, this dilemma was confronting me when he gave up the use of the board. How to communicate, what to tell people, what Baba wanted us to know. So, I implored Baba to give us some method by which we could freely communicate with Baba and Baba could communicate with the people. One evening I still remember, it was at Satara, about 70 miles from Pune where Baba was staying. He called me by his side, made me sit down. Baba was on a sofa set and I was squatting in front of him. Just then, he said, he gestured for the first time and did this. And he said that was A. I said, A? Baba nodded his head. A. My face brightened up. I felt very much cheered that Baba is now going to give me the alphabets for the first time. Then it was B, Baba said, and C, and D, and he pointed to his ear saying that it is E. And then he gave no sign for F. And then he said, here is G, and here is H. And then he gave no sign for the letter J. F and J were not mentioned by Baba. Then K was like this. K. L, M, N, O, or O, P, and Q would be this, and R would be this, and S would be the opposite of R. T, the famous sign T, U, V, W, X, Y would be this, and Z he would point out as this. So I learned the alphabets from Baba. And then, of course, Baba also practiced the alphabets, you see, and started forming little words from them. And as days passed by, we were amongst ourselves, that is between Baba and myself, very free with the conversation. And that's how I started to decipher his gestures through the fingers, the signs that he made. But I must tell you all frankly that reading his fingers was not the only means of communication. The stress, the emphasis that I had to put, for that I had to read his facial expressions too. How big his eyes he would dilate, or how he would bring out a smile, or the expression on his face or cheeks, or on his forehead. Every little expression. How he would press his jaws, you see. All that counted very much, very, very much, that I could communicate the right sense that was to be communicated from Baba to the one to whom it was directed to. Through Baba's help and grace, I could read his finger signs fast, faster still, and very fast. And you may call it his grace or his will, that even I could, before he could finish the word, I could put in that word completely. Before he could letter the word, so to say. Just as if he wants to say word, he starts saying W-O-R, and before he finishes R, I would say word. So, people who were around him, and even the mandali who were around him, felt that Eruch was trying to say things out before Baba wanted to say anything. And with a very jolly mood, you see, the mandali would sometimes come and say to me that, well, they wouldn't call me out by my name as Eruch, but they would say, hello, Baba says, come out, Baba wants you. So my name, I was nicknamed as Baba says, because every sentence I had to say would be, Baba says, and then decipher the gesture. Otherwise, they would think that it was Eruch who was speaking out. So I was nicknamed, and I'm still named as sometimes as Baba says. So that's how Baba's messages, discourses, and certain writings got printed through his finger signs, facial expressions. And the emphasis I had to lay was just because of his facial expressions. Baba was not only a perfect person, but Baba was a perfect producer and a reproducer of his thoughts through his gestures. So Irwin and Edward, this is how gestures and words were spelled out by me.
You once mentioned that Baba would have you say the 100 names of God before him. And how would he go about that with you? Would he have that you repeat that very slowly? What would occur when he would have you do that?
Well,
what was the expression and the feelings?
You see, the thing is, you ask me about how would Baba express himself when I would read out to him the 101 names of God. You must know that in Zoroastrian scriptures, the language is Zand, it is called, as it is called. It's not Persian, it's called Zand. And Avesta is the holy book. So, means the Zoroastrian scripture. In that, there are 101 names of God in the Zand language. As children, we are taught by our parents to repeat the names, 101 names of God, almost every day. To be very fair and frank to all of you, I must say that I do not remember the 101 names by heart now. But there was a time, years on end, when I used to repeat the 101 names every day, because my parents wanted them to be repeated. Little did I know the meaning of the words or the significance But it so happened that once Baba sat down with the Mandali and gave us the meaning of each name of God in English. And we jotted the things down, names down against each Zand name that was there in the scriptures. And then we got that name, English translation typed out. And then very frequently, I should say, Baba would ask me to repeat those names, read them out to him. Every name that I would repeat, you see, he would just gesture how perfectly said, how perfectly named is God. What glorious name for him. What a marvelous thing he is. How beautiful he is. How effulgent he is, and so forth. So with every name that he himself had given in the translation, he would marvel the way the name was given to God, you see. It was so appropriate, so beautiful a name. Well, this is how I used to repeat frequently. Even a few days before Baba dropped his body, he asked me to repeat the names of 101 names of God. And I repeated them. And they are really very good. Really very good. It gives some idea as to who God is.
Do you recall any incidents of Baba's awakening his compassion, where you start to really become aware of his compassion?
Well, you speak about his compassion to me. Well, yes, he did awaken in me the conviction of his avatarhood through the feelings that I had about his infinite compassion. Well, Baba is to tell us all that he is the avatar, that he comes again and again, that he is the ancient one, he is the one sought by all, and so few find. How blessed we were to have found him, how much more blessed we were to be living with him. Well, all these delighted our ears. Was there anything in our hearts? These were the words from the perfects of the Ancient One. As I just now said, they delighted my ears, you see. That he was the avatar, that he was God in human form. But how am I to know that? My ears heard this. My eyes witnessed certain phenomena. But how can my heart be convinced of the whole thing? How?
That's the question.
Well, as you say, that's the question. I'm not made of one who would readily take in things. I started, you see, analyzing different things, you see. Well, I used to say, Baba is a good man. Baba is really kind. Well, Baba expresses affection. And that was very happy to witness all these things. But then, all these things did not convince my heart as to he is the same ancient one. There can be kind persons, good persons, loving persons, affectionate persons, and so forth. Then it so happened that we went out with Baba, you see, on tours. And in a crowd of hundreds, you see, people would just turn their heads towards Baba and start gazing at him. So I used to notice this phenomena also. And I would say that, well, he shines out amongst the people there. He must be somebody great. Somebody, he is somebody. But can he be God? Can he be the God-man? Well, and again some months and years would roll by and I would get another proof. All of a sudden, you see, some must, God-intoxicated soul, you see, who had been sitting for years together at the spot, would jump up in attendance in presence of Baba and start glorifying him in words which are not commonly given out to any person. Well, my mind started saying, well, there must be something in this great man. Then another must, and another must, who had never contacted him, they testified to his divinity. Well, they can see. I just gave up. I said, well, they must be seeing certain things within Baba, seeing his divinity, seeing his being divine, that makes them say these things out spontaneously. But what about my heart? I can't see anything. I can't say with conviction that he is the avatar. He is the God-man. Although I have been living with him, although I am being in his proximity almost all throughout the day, you see. And yet, what has happened to my heart? Why does not the heart open, you see? Then Baba gave out that message which consoled me and comforted me, that love is the gift of God to man. Well, I waited patiently for that gift. Maybe one day he might pour into my heart that love, which might help me to testify as the other musts have done to his divinity.
What were some of the things that the must would say that you heard?
Yeah. Well, the musts would glorify him, you see, spontaneously, that he is the one on whose shoulder rests the responsibility of the world. That if he wills, with one breath of his can split the earth into two. That he is the one who is awaited for so long. Some would say that he is Lord Krishna. Another would say that he is the one for whom I was waiting so long. And so forth. These things are all given in the Wayfarers, you see. Not all of them, but some of them have been given like that. What I am saying...
But you were there when they said some of these things.
Yes. So these sayings of these musts, you see, God-intoxicated people, help me a great deal to pay heed to what Baba would say, I should say. But what made me feel convinced about his divinity is something different. And I am coming to that point now. And that was the exercise of his compassion, his exercise of infinite love, infinite patience. I had heard these words, you see, and I had heard this adjective, infinite, you see. To what length you can stretch it, your imagination cannot reach there. My imagination cannot reach. But then there must be a limit, you see, because my imagination has limitations. But I stretched it to its very limit, you see. And I found that his love could not be trapped in my imagination. His compassion cannot be trapped in my imagination. It was far, far beyond it. I remember on several occasions when a person, any ordinary person or even an extraordinary person or a saintly person would have got exasperated. But his patience, his infinite patience stood out in bold relief, you see, and gave me comfort, helped me and made me feel at home with him. When somebody would have just given a blow on my head and driven me out from his presence,
Can you give an instance of where you saw this patience of Baba?
Yes, one instance it was a daily recurrence, then I felt. Because as I was able to decipher his gestures with greater speed, his finger movements gained greater and greater speed. They were having more speed than I could decipher, you see. And it so happened that a day came when my eyesight somehow or other could not, catch up with his fingers that were snapping here and there, you see. And there would be obstruction in the flow of Baba's thoughts. When, you see, what happens is, thoughts come out, Baba gives out the gestures, because he is a perfect person, a human, a man amongst men. He's not, when he comes down as the God-man, it is a great blessing, a boon on mankind, that he mingles among men as man. He is God, but he condescends to come down for our sake and mingle amongst us as man. And as man, naturally, he expresses his thoughts through his gestures. And you know the speed of the thoughts, and you know how the gestures are. Baba's fingers would move with great speed, but then I must follow them and catch hold of the gestures. I would fail, and again he would repeat. And mind you, it was not repeating only amongst ourselves, before a crowd of thousands of persons, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And there you should see how it is, you see, when there is a bit of hesitation or anything of that sort, it tells upon the psychology of the crowds. But even then he exercised his patience. I could feel that. I could feel my weakness, I could feel my shortcomings, and I felt as if that I could read. And at the same time it was a nice lesson to me, you see. I thought that I never paid any heed, that I never prepared myself that Baba would say things and then I must figure out and I must give out the gestures like that. It was all spontaneous. There was no, clairaudience or clairvoyance or anything of the sort. You see, nothing of that sort. It was just pure mechanical thing, you see, through practice. So, and then, before the whole crowd, you see, when I would just hesitate or mumble out certain words which were not coherent or anything, he would pet me and he would comfort me, and then again he would slow down and then repeat all the gestures and give out the message. That's how, after years, you see, I felt convinced about his infinite love, his infinite patience, his compassion. Now what to say about his compassion, you see? You all have heard and read about Baba's contacts with the poor, with the leper. With the leper he would become one with them. With the blind he would be one of the blind.
We know very little bit about this here, Baba's work with the lepers and the poor and the compassionate side of it.
Well,
a little bit that's been written.
Well, the thing is that...
But you were there?
Yes, I was there. The thing is that when he would be... sometimes he would express a desire that he would want to contact, say, 101 lepers, or say 51 lepers, or say 7 lepers. So what we had to do was to go hunt out these lepers and bring them to Baba. You just imagine, you see, how kind, loving and compassionate he is. He would take great precaution and care for our bodies, that we should not come in the direct contact of the wounds, or that we should touch them, or that we should handle them as Baba would handle them. Baba said that his handling the lepers was absolutely different from our handling them. And therefore we had to take great precautions that we should not touch them. We should be away from them. He was very kind, he was very loving, he was very concerned about our health also. So we would hunt these musts out, bring them to him. No sooner he saw the whole file of these musts, you see, arranged before him, he would feel so happy. He would express his happiness through a beaming smile and just nod at them and make them feel at home in his presence. Then he would go to them and express to them how happy he was that they had come to him. And then each one would be petted by Baba. And then we would make all arrangements for Baba. The most significant thing that he did was that he would ask each individual leper to approach him. The leper would approach him. There was a special table made up for that purpose, which is put in the museum room at Meherabad.
Yes.
You have seen that, yeah. So there were some steps there, a table-like thing. Then the steps would take them down. So Mandli would handle them to the extent that they were just made to go on the table, and that too very delicately and with great precautions. As soon as they stood on the table, well, Baba was very happy. He would be sitting on a chair in front of them, look at them, just express how happy he was to see them. Then he would comfort them, saying that, well, they should not feel that God has given them a certain disease which is incurable, or that God has neglected them, or that God has nothing to do with them. On the contrary, they were very close to God, because their disease makes them secluded from the rest of the world. Baba, I have heard once or twice Baba comforting the whole lot of the lepers who had come there. He says, look here, dear ones, how fortunate you all are because of this natural calamity, that so-called calamity that has come to you people. Yogis and those aspirants who aspire to reach God, they leave the world. They have to fight to leave the world and go to secluded spots and remain aloof and segregated from the world. Here you have got a ready chance where the world leaves you and you are left there. You have not to bother about them. So this is such a good opportunity that God has bestowed upon you people, that wherever you are, think of Him. Think of this disease, so-called disease that you have got, as a boon, as a blessing, that the world leaves you and you are there in direct communion with God if you wish to. Then he would say, how beautiful are these souls in dirty cages, you see. Then this he would tell us. Then he would take their feet, you see, wash their feet, and then dry them with a new towel. For each pair of feet, he would use a fresh towel, fresh napkin, dry them, and then put his beautiful forehead touching their feet, their soles, and then he would bless them with his own prasad, a gift from God to man. And that we don't know what help that provides, you see. Sometimes it would be in form of a bundle of new clothes. Sometimes it would be in the form of currency notes or coins. Sometimes it would be a bundle of grain or sweets, packet of sweets, whatever it be. That would be a sort of a contact between the God-man and man as leper. And then, or sometimes he would give blankets to them if the season is cold or winter season. So likewise, each leper who came in front of him was comforted, helped, and love was bestowed upon each one, and each one departed, you see, got down the steps with shining bright faces, you see. We have seen these people coming, you see, as if they were discarded, they were thrown out of society. But when they left Baba's presence, they felt the dignity of their being on this earth. They felt that they were some persons who were also needed by some. And thus Baba would contact them. So often he has bathed these lepers. We would try to see that Baba's hands wouldn't touch their soles. We would try to put gloves on Baba's hands. We would try to cover Baba's body. What would happen, you see, when Baba would wash their feet and all that, the table you have seen, he would be sitting like this, the table is like this. All the water would just pour here, you see, on his own body, on his own legs and thighs and feet and everything. So we would try to put a Macintosh or something like that, you see, so the water doesn't touch him. But after a while, his kindness, his love and compassion is so great. He knows that we love his body. He knows that if he wouldn't permit us to protect his body or to tend after him properly, we would feel displeased. So he would please us by allowing us to do these things. But after a while, very gently, he would remove the things, you see, and be his natural self. And again the same story repeats. He is drenched with the same water that had washed the wounds of the lepers. From head to foot, you see, he is drenched with the disease, so to say. He would embrace them. He would kiss his feet. But he would take great care that we never imitated him. We never did the same thing as he did, because he is something different. He becomes a leper amongst the lepers. That's a different thing. We as human beings cannot do such things. He never wanted us to do these things. He never wanted us to go and contact musts because he did it. He never wants us to contact lepers that he did it. Yes, he wants us to respect them. He wants us to give them a place in society. No doubt about it. He wants us that we should help them. But he does not want us to imitate him in different respects, that we saw him doing, bathing the leper and touching his feet or touching his wounds or doing this or that. He wanted us to take great care of our health. So that's how he contacted the lepers.
Could you tell us a little bit of
Oopsie. So at this point, I, I, I thought,
It's so beautiful to see
was.
Eruch.
Oh my goodness, and he's,
Oh, wow.
I totally agree.
Yeah, it was like, whoa.
And there's more, but I thought maybe we might like to take a little break and hear some music. I know Gabriella has a special song, and
Yeah,
you know, this is a small group. We can choose to go on. The whole video lasts about an hour, so I guess there's maybe 25 minutes left. But
yeah.
yeah,
It would be great to hear the whole thing, Betty, after whenever you decide about the rest of the program.
okay. That was all. I was just going to break for sharing and see get the mood of the group. What?
Yeah, just the way he is, the way he talks, and it's just so beautiful. I have to say, the man was beautiful, the interpreter. Oh,
You can put a link up of the video.
I'll do that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Betty, I think it would be lovely to have sharing, and if you said Gabriella has a song, that would be lovely to hear.
Okay, and we can return to the movie if you like at the afterward. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Gabriella, are you up for a song, or where are you? Not seeing you.
Jai Baba, well, it's just in a very different phase of Eruch's life. So I was thinking we might want to talk more first about our experiences, and maybe because it was kind of at the end of his life. See, where he was there, he was sharing. It was so I don't know, early, really, in terms of his work for us, with us. But I also just want to add that watching that just then, it was so incredible. He takes you, his speaking takes you to the place that he's talking about. And I guess he did that for Baba. You know, he brought it so, and the way he explained about Baba, about needing to not break the flow of Baba's thought, the care that he would take just so there wouldn't be a break in Baba's expression. I'd never heard that before, so thank you so much for sharing that. It's powerful.
He takes you through his own process,
Exactly.
learning how to be an interpreter, and learning. Yeah, isn't that remarkable?
And we've all lived through the part about, or I think so, that how can I know that he's the God man? I mean, I can see it, I hear others, and that's just so real, and just it reminded me of how it was to be with him and how remarkable. But when I was with him, or when I can speak for myself, but it was so natural that I didn't realize as much as I do now, of course, who Eruch is. It was so easy to be with him. So, I mean, I can share a couple of stories if you want to kick off the sharing, and I'm sure others
She's
have
got a
lots.
hand up, but I wonder if should we do Judy?
Oh, good, Judy, and then I'll kick in later.
Okay, Judy.
Hey there. Um, yeah, I thought I might share a story that Erich told a number of times in Mandalay Hall over the years, to give a bit of background if people don't know it. Many of you will probably know this story, but it sets context for Erich and the Jessawala clan into which he was born. And Erich first met Baba, I believe it was on Christmas Day back in 1925, when he was coming in. I'm not going to tell this story, but I'm just, let's see, it's just become me. I want to see everybody else.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'm seeing everybody else now. You can do whatever you need to do technically. But at any rate, so he met Baba in 25 when he was 9 years old, and his mother had asked him, she was afraid that Baba would be concerned about the animals. I think it was horses that they were carrying a large carriage. And so she told Erich, just as they were coming up to Meherabad, jump off. And he jumped off and he hurt his elbow really badly and it was bleeding. And he had to walk quite a ways over by the dooney where Baba was sitting. Everybody else was already there. And Baba had him come over and sit, on his lap or put his head there. Anyway, he took such loving care that I remember Erich said, he never met this person, but he was kinder than his own mother to him. That was his words. He was kinder than his own mother to him. So fast forwarding to 1938, and most of you probably know that Erich came from Nagpur, and his father had a very important position in the Indian government, and he was head of boilers for the whole country of India, which apparently is a really big job. I don't know precisely what he did, but it allowed them to have a very beautiful estate. And Erich used to describe it so beautifully, that they had an aviary with birds and beautiful gardens. And Erich was very knowledgeable about both botany and horticulture. And so this day in the spring of 38, Erich was in the greenhouse tending to some of the plants. It's very hot in, I think it was about April, which is very, very hot in India, as I think we have a number of folks from India, they know quite well. And so he was trying to make sure that they would survive during the heat. And in India at that time, telegrams would be delivered by a messenger on a bike who would ring the bike bell. And so that sounded, and that always, people would pay attention because that was how, it was like the phone ringing nowadays, but they didn't have phones back then. And so his mother heard it and realized, oh, they must have delivered it to Erich. So she went out to the greenhouse and said, Erich, did we get a telegram? Yes, mother. and he pulled it out of his pocket shirt, his shirt pocket, and handed it to her and went on with what he was doing. And she read it, and it was from Baba. And it was specifically to Eruch, and it said, "Come immediately." And he indicated where he was. Baba was actually traveling on a train at the time that he sent. He must have stopped at a station and sent that telegram. And his mother looked at him and chided him. "What are you doing? Baba said, come immediately. Why haven't you left already?" And he said, "Mother, immediately means I can come tomorrow. The plants, it's really hot. I'm taking care of them all." And Gaimai, his mother, was very upset with him, but what could she do? And a few minutes later, another telegram arrived, and it was, the bell rang, and Gaimai came out and saw that, asked Eruch, what another telegram? And he said, "Yes, mother," and handed it to her. And it was from another station down, the next station where Baba was riding the train. And it said, "Come immediately." And his mother, then said, "Eruch, you have to go right now. Baba is calling you. You can't wait." And so Eruch wasn't prepared. It was, it was going to be a long journey he was going on the train. He grabbed his father. Nobody else in Nagpur had a car in those days. His father had a very grand car, and he jumped into that and went to the train station and caught a train that was just leaving to go to the site where Baba had called him. And when he got there, he went in and saw Baba, and Baba asked him, "Can you leave everything and come to me?" And Eruch spontaneously answered, "By your grace, everything's possible." And Baba paused for a moment and thought, "Can your whole family leave everything and come to me?" And Eruch again answered, "Baba, by your grace, everything's possible." And so Baba then gave instructions. He said, "Okay, you need to disband the entire estate, and leave all of that, come with one suitcase for each person in the family." He had two younger sisters. They were, he was 21 at the time, and so they would have been, teenagers, late teens. And then there was Merwan. We're talking 38. Yeah, Merwan Jessawala was, I think, about 7 or something then. And his parents. And so one suitcase each, and come on the 1st of August to Meherabad that year in 38. And Baba gave some other instructions, and Eruch got back on the train and headed home. And when he was sitting on the train, he started to realize what he had just committed, what he had just said to Baba. He committed that his whole family would come, leave everything, and come and be in Baba's service. And he got really afraid of what his father was going to think, because his father had this very important position, and he was still a kid and had committed the whole family to Baba. And so he kept worrying about that all the way home. And when he got home, his mother, saw him coming. And there was, I don't remember how he got home. Maybe he walked, or maybe he took a Tonga, because the car, I think his father had collected the car at the station and was quite upset with him about leaving the car with the keys. Well, I think he turned the keys over to the station master, but his father felt that was very not a secure thing to do. And his mother came running out, said, "What did Baba say? What did Baba say?" And he said, "Mother, just wait, just wait. It's been a long journey. Let me take a bath and have some tea, and we'll call the whole family together." And Kai Mai, was very anxious, but that's what happened. So he had his bath, he had his tea, and then they all came into the sitting room. And he explained what had happened with Baba. And immediately, as soon as he said, "By your grace, everything is possible," about the family, Kai Mai said, "How blessed we are, how blessed we are that the Lord himself, of his own volition, has called us to him." And his father said, all of this great estate has been, I've done it so that you can be comfortable and happy. If you'd be more happy being with Mayor Baba, then so be it. But don't include me. Don't make me do anything about the transition, about selling the estate and so forth. Eruch, you have to do all of it yourself, which that's a whole other long story. And it did happen, and it happened in time for them to go in on the 1st of August in 1938 and join Mayor Baba. But what I most love is Kai Mai's utter enthusiasm and recognition of what an incredible blessing it is to be in the Lord's service and to be called personally by him. And I think probably all of you know that Mayor Baba said that Kai Mai, Eruch's mother, would be the mother of the next avatar. The next time Baba comes, that Kai Mai will be his mother. And when he told that to Eruch the first time, Eruch said, "No, Baba, no, please, please don't have her be your mother. The mother of the avatar suffers so much." But Baba said, "Nope, it's already in the plans." Anyway, so that's one of the stories that I love to hear Eruch tell. And when he told stories, they were never old. It was always like, and I think it was Gabriella that mentioned that he could make you feel in the room. And I remember many times Eruch talking about how to tell a good story. And he emphasized, you have to make the person feel that they are actually there when it's happening. And Eruch, to me, well, right there with Monty, the two best storytellers on the planet ever. Minus Mayor Baba, I didn't get to hear his stories, in person this time round. But yeah, Eruch was such a wonderful storyteller, and any of us, and it all comes through the video. Betty, that was a beautiful video you shared with us. And anyway, so Jai Mayor Baba.
Oh, thanks, Judy. You remember that story so well, and you tell it well too. Thanks so much for sharing that one. So yeah. Um, any other? Now, Gabriella, you were going to start to tell a story. What do you think? You ready to tell it?
I'll say a couple of words about it's. This is way later, of course. These are early stories that we're sharing. Mine were when I met Eruch in the '90s, but I remember. Well, this is what I'll do. I'll tell. I have a few, but I remember when. God, my brain. Who is it that was the librarian? The Nanakir. So when Nanakir passed away, I was in India, and Nana in those last years was extremely slow in his walking, but he insisted on going up the hill every RT and down the hill every RT. And so sometimes I would walk with him. I could still walk, walking, no wait, I'm trying to think. Well, there were different phases, but either I was with him in the wheelchair and somebody was pushing me, and I think that might have been it, actually. And that was nice for me because I wasn't holding him back because he was super slow. And he took forever to walk up and down that hill. And it was even for me a little frustrating, but he just completely, that was his thing to do. So at the time of his passing, I was sitting in the chair. I was definitely in the wheelchair there. And I remember sitting by the fire, and it was a very long process. You know how sometimes the fires just blew up, and it's over very quickly. This was the slowest thing. And so Eruch comes over to me and he said, just like Nana to go so slowly like that. And then he said, when I go, I want it to be fast like an atomic bomb. Like that to me. So I remember that. And so this song, which I will now sing, I think I wrote about that point because I felt that the whole time or especially the last part of his life, that Eruch was just clearly just waiting to go to be with Baba, and was waiting with a kind of ardor, just to think. I mean, I had heard told that he was a perfect master that was veiled, that Baba had said Eruch's perfect master was veiled. Somebody can clarify if that's correct or not. Judy?
Yeah, what Baba said of Eruch is that he has one more life as a perfect master. He wasn't in this life as we know him, but
Okay.
And Eruch requested. I know that Bob also told Mani she has one more life as a perfect master, and she will be a man in that incarnation. I know that Eruch requested Baba that he would like to be a woman next time, so he can feel God's love. He can feel, and as many of you probably heard him say, that most of his life, maybe even to the end, he felt like he couldn't feel God's love. So yeah, one more life.
Right. Just the way Gaimai demonstrated that perfect faith that he was looking for, in this life. It's interesting he had that, his mother had it, Anyway,
If I might make just one more comment about him going up in a puff of smoke. And Eruch was not cremated. Eruch and all of the men, I think every man in the men's graveyard at Meherabad are embodied. Their whole bodies are there. so Eruch was buried as opposed to being cremated as Nana Care was.
Right. Okay, thanks. That still was his comment, though. I was very touched that well, for one thing, I mean, on another level, everything I did was so slow and frustrating, and then, he was being slowed down with my wheelchair, and he kind of gave me a little, I don't know, power energy burst there with his comment. So I wrote this song, I think around that time. I never got to sing it for him, but it's called Waiting, and I just pulled it out. I'm not perfect on the melody, please forgive me, but I'll do my best with what I can do with this song. Oh wait, am I on original sound? Yes. Waiting. 1 second. Waiting. I keep waiting. It's the sweetest thing I can do. For I am waiting for a glimpse of you. Baba, Meherabad, I think I'm waiting so patiently. But when I reach the goal, I'll see it's you. Been waiting for me. Da 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 da. Oh, the stone is waiting for the chance to crawl on the ground, and the crawling things are waiting to be a fish swimming around and around and around, and the animals are waiting to ascend to the state of a man, and humanity is waiting for the God-man. Dun, 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 waiting. I keep waiting. It's the sweetest thing I can do. For I am waiting for a glimpse of you. Baba, dear Baba, I think I'm waiting so patiently. But when I reach the goal, I'll see it's you. Been waiting for me. Da 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 da. Thousands of lifetimes we've waited for something beyond. Oh, we didn't know what we were waiting for. Like some far-off song, as the music came clearer, we knew it is an invitation from you to turn away from Maya and come closer to you. Oh, beloved, I'm waiting for this body to die, for the weight of the ego to be lifted by and by. Now that I felt your presence, I know what I'm waiting for. I'm hungry for your embrace. I'm still waiting at your door. Waiting, I keep waiting. It's the sweetest thing I can do. For I am waiting for a glimpse of you. Baba, dear Baba, I think I'm waiting for so patiently. But when I reach the goal, I'll see it's you. Been waiting for me. Da 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 da. Oh, beloved, I'm waiting for this longing heart to cease, calling out for you, Lord, calling for some release. Days and nights I am waiting, living through pleasure and pain. Please tell me, dear Baba, the purpose of your waiting game. Waiting. I keep waiting. It's the sweetest thing I can do. For I am waiting for a glimpse of you. Baba, dear Baba, I think I'm waiting so patiently. But when I reach the goal, I'll see it's you, been waiting for me. Jai Baba. Thank you, thank you.
That's fabulous. I love that concept. Wow, wow. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. Let's see, Rosalie has a hand up.
Okay, Baba, I think of when I first went to India in 76. I would say it is described by Baba speaking to Narina, saying, "You cannot be God before being truly human." And the Mandali, everyone I met, certainly Eruch, they were truly human, beautifully human. You know, when I was there, he celebrated his birthday, October 13th, and he goes, the people in Mandali are always saying, "Want to celebrate, Eruch? What do you want?" And he goes, as only Eruch can go, he says, "I want to die." I'll never forget that. But actually, shortly after that, he did have a stroke, and he was taken to a Bindra house for his mother and sister to take care of him. But he wasn't impaired, but just the beauty, watching that film and hearing him talk, like it was like making music. He was just flowing, just like he could caress words. He's talking about the God man, and he was like, but like such an artist. I just have to say artist. And so I think all of them were humble in whatever expression it was. Very different Padre being humble than Eruch or Alaba, but they had, it's like, I think Baba beat them down to, they were surrendered to Baba. Their lives were just surrendered, and it was just such beauty to be around that. Just to be around that, it's just like, it can't but affect you so at your deepest core. But and I thought, and my reaction was, I remember being there on Christmas Day, that first pilgrimage, and thinking, these are my family. This is my family, and I'm the black sheep of my family. So I needed a better thought of a family, but I knew where all of them were. I knew where Pendu sat. I knew Alaba was going to come in and call for tea. They were all like this beautiful orchestration of focused on Baba. It was just amazing. I just feel so grace. And I remember because I always loved Christmas, And I was so happy being in Mandalay Hall with these beautiful human beings. Beautiful, yeah. And I remember being shy of Eruch because just because he was a man, I mean, not, you know, and he was kindly and beautiful, but I guess I'm just shy, you know. And I remember Wincoat, Susan White's brother, used to take these beautiful photographs of the Mandalay. And he took a picture of me the one day that I mustered the courage up to sit near Eruch. And I was just really kind of proud that I got the nerve up to sit there. And boy, that was a nice picture, I can tell you. Anyway, I just thank God for meeting these beautiful lovers of God, you know, and the truly human is I think the most beautiful part of it, because it's hard being human, as we're all finding out. It's hard being human. We're being human when God is manifesting change. Wow, it's pretty challenging. Anyway, that's my thoughts, feelings.
Thanks, Rosalie. Yeah, so lucky all of you who were there so early on. Gabriella, I think you were.
Just a quick thing, remembering seeing him again in that film, and I was remembering how when he talked in later years, he had to hold his jaw. Just to speak, he had to lean on his jaw because it was, I don't know what it was exactly, Judy, why he had that problem with his jaw was, he lost his teeth or something, where he couldn't even, this is Baba's mouthpiece, and he was given a real challenge with speaking in later years, and he had to sit like this to hold it. But in that film, he didn't. That was earlier, and I was just so happy to see him free, you know, in that film. So that made me think of that.
Judy? Where'd you go, Judy? Did you have something to say, Judy?
Sorry.
Yeah.
We seem to be on a theme of waiting and so forth, you know, of the latter part of Eruch's life today. And I have the good fortune of living at Meherabad for the last sort of decade of his life. And what I remember him saying was, you'd ask him some days how he was, and he'd just say, I'm lingering. I'm lingering. That was the thing I heard him say most often, but almost equal to that is he would say, I'm waiting for Baba to reach out his hand and pull me out of this muck of illusion, in those exact words. And that comes from a story that probably most of you know. And I don't remember where it took place, but for some reason, Baba and Eruch were together alone. Eruch had a briefcase that he always carried when he was with Baba that had maybe a towel or an extra, you know, different things that would Baba might need along the way. And they were out in a canoe, a really rickety canoe on a lake that was very mucky. And they were taking a shortcut. If they had gone the way, if they'd walked, it would have taken them a couple of hours longer. And so they decided to take a shortcut across this lake. And there were, I don't know, a half dozen, like kind of mischievous young, you know, probably teenage boys in the water. And they decided to, kind of get prankish and came over, swam around the canoe and started tipping it. And they tipped it sufficiently that they tipped Baba and Eruch into the water, and Baba could not swim. And Eruch, holding the briefcase with one hand, managed to, and Baba sank down into the muck. And Eruch had to go down and lift him out and then keep his mouth above water. They were quite a ways out. And Eruch saved Baba's life that day, getting him to the edge. And both of them were just filthy with muck. And as you know, in India, sometimes mud isn't mud. At any rate, Eruch, I think, I do not remember why they were alone, but they were. And Eruch used to say that was one of the only times that he ever left Baba alone, because he had to go back to where they were staying and get clean clothing for Baba. And at any rate, it was a very, very difficult and precarious day and situation. And Baba said, at sort of, toward the end of it, he said, one day, it's like you pulled me out of this mucky lake today. One day, I will reach out my hand and pull you out of the muck of illusion. And that's what Baba eventually did on the 31st of August back in 2001. And that's what Baba, that's what Eruch had been waiting for, at least in this life. And then he's got one more. We'll see. Hopefully we'll get to meet him as a perfect master in his next life, but there's no guarantees. But at any rate, and that'll be the final scooping out of the muck of all illusion at that time. But that was, Eruch finally got his wish. And the one other little addendum to what Gabriel mentioned about Nana care. So before the wheelchair days, he would walk up and down the hill very slowly, and he called himself Baba's Super Express. And I had the good fortune of being one of the people, especially in the evening on the way down, because he would lead Arti in those days. Even when he was the Super Express, he was still basically in charge of the samadhi, and beautifully led the prayers and so forth. But I had the good fortune to accompany the Super Express on his journey down the hill in the evenings. Jai Baba.
What a thought, Judy, that we might meet Eruch again as a perfect master next time.
I'm hoping to be in line for Mani as well. I don't know what country, how many lifetimes, anyway, I don't know when or where, but yes, wouldn't it be wonderful?
Mikal, you've got a hand up.
Yeah. So it's beautiful to hear. It was beautiful to see the video and to see how he expresses himself at the beginning of, right after Baba left the body, actually 71. So and how happy he was that the Luck brothers did that. That they brought the film, they brought all the equipment in order to film all the mandali all over the world, and at that same time they also in the compound they filmed Mani, they filmed Bauji, and if you get a link of that, then you can go into who sent the link, and from there you can get to other beautiful shares that the Luck brother are now releasing. I mean, that Aaron is now releasing into for us to see. So it's really beautiful. So I just have those memories. I wasn't very close to Eruch, actually. I mean, he was so busy and he was so taking care. He was like the head of the family. He became the head of the family after Baba left, actually. Everyone respected him, and he was the one who pulled the Mandali out of the despair, after the real strong despair each one of them felt when Baba left the body suddenly, and in this way he also pulled himself out. So I'm just remembering the beauty of coming there, and just the pictures of being there, like Eruch used to his office, the office of the head man. His office was on the terrace, on the back terrace. Now, why was it on the back terrace? First of all, because he was humble and didn't want anyone to think highly of him. And secondly, because from there, he could look at Mani and take care of her. So on the terrace, there was a small window into the room where Mani was sitting, and Mani was sitting on the, like if you came into the compound, and Mani was sitting on the main office, she was sitting with her back to the terrace, where if we would come into the office, she would be sitting with the back to us, I mean, on the back wall, and we'd come in and she would be sitting on the left side on her desk, and Eruch was on the terrace on the other side, and there was a small window, and she could see him and he could see her. So that was so sweet, so sweet. So I always felt that he was really taking care of her, really, really treasuring her and wrapping her and making assuring her, and that was so sweet. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, of course, all his talks. When he would sit on a small stool in the corner, right opposite Baba's chair in the Mandali Hall, and tell his stories. For hours and hours and hours, he would tell stories in the Mandali Hall, and people would just be sitting there and listening. And that was another thing, just to see that picture of him sitting in that corner, also very humble. And I was very fortunate to be there on the very few days before, a few weeks, 2 weeks before he passed away. And Etzion gave me a video camera, but it was terrible video camera. It was half broken. But I used it, and Eruch was speaking, and I remember the last talk. I think it was one of the last talks that he gave in Mandali Hall. And this talk moved me so much, because he was telling about the time that Baba called him to Stara to ask him if he would be with him and if the family would be with him. And Eruch was talking about that, and then he stopped and was silent, and he said, if Baba would ask you if your family would now leave everything and come to him, would they? So he was just so, he was remembering in one of his last talks, he was remembering his family, and his family was very, very, very precious and very, very special. And Gema is the one who gave the spark to all the family. And Merwan and his father, which was called Pistol because he was such a tough guy and such a hard task man. And and these sisters who were so gentle and everything. They left everything. They left everything. They left the comfort of the world, all of them. I mean, Eruch was right next to Baba, so that's different. But they left everything. They came to Baba, and then Baba sent them to Pune and just plopped them there. And they had nothing. They had nothing, you know, after being so rich and having all the comforts in the world, they had nothing. But they were so how do you say, so devoted to Baba, so devoted with everything they did. She used to cook for him when he was in Guru Prasad, and they would do anything for him, anything, anytime. And what is so beautiful is if Baba would send Eruch to his mother in Pune when he was in Guru Prasad, he would send Eruch to his family to be with them and to just tell them stories from Baba and everything. And he would tell him to pay his mother a coin for eating there. He would not, Baba has made that contact with this whole family quite different. That if Eruch would go, he would pay his mother for the meal, and which was very special. In that same talk that Eruch gave on the last day that I heard him, and I think it was really, really 2 weeks before I left, because it was August when I was there. That's when I had vacations from the kindergarten. And he said also, well, I actually don't think they will come back. I don't think Mani would come back. I don't think Eruch would come back. I think Baba was telling them what they will be after Baba dropped his body, and that they're all now in Baba's Darbar. And I'm waiting to see them there. I'm not waiting to see them here. No, I'm not looking to go into other lives and looking for my money and Eruch and Bauji. I think they're all celebrating up there with Baba, and I really I really want to go up there. And there were some songs that Baba lovers would sing. I think also G. Meyer and Etzion Becker wrote some skits, how they're all celebrating up there in the Baba's Darbar. Mera and Mani and Eruch and all of them, and some other gods and demigods. And I like that picture, and I have actually feel that that's what's happening. So Eruch said, because Baba did promise him to go out. He didn't promise him that he will have one more life. I mean, he said some of the Mandali would have some more lives, but he didn't say it to Eruch. He said, I'm going to pull you out of the muck, and I'm going to pull you out. So I don't think he said that he would come back. But Eruch said at that talk, he said, if Baba would come again, I would want to come with him and to serve him again. That's what he said at that talk. And it was so heartful, you know, it was from his heart. If Baba would come back again, I would want to have the chance to serve him again. So I also want to tell one more little story of Bauji, darling. I'm more close to Bauji, and Baba was sort of put me in Bauji's care. So, but it took time for me to understand that. It took a long time for me to understand it, but I think Bauji knew that. Anyway, when I came to Meherabad for the first time, 1988, I wrote them before that I'm coming, and they said that they're okay and they have a place and everything, and I should come. And there was no relationship with Israel at that time. And I had a British passport. So I went to England and I got a visa and I came from England. So I was traveling all the way from Israel to England, going through all these things in order to get the visa there, and then get a ticket there, and then so it was woo. And I didn't know anything about anything and about anyone, of course, nothing. I just heard about Baba maybe 2 months before, and that's all. And I didn't know that I was coming to Baba. I knew I was coming to India, but Baba was like the first stage, and that's where he caught me, and I never left. But because Baba knew that I was coming to him. So all this journeying, and then coming to Bombay, and then landing, and then taking a train the next morning, early the next morning, and then taking from Pune a rickshaw, because I didn't know that you don't drive in rickshaws, and a rickshaw driver was the first person who said, "You're going to Baba? I'll take you to Baba." So, so I said, okay. And so I came there, and I came to and the rickshaw didn't know anything about Baba either. So he brought me to the PC, and the PC office, she said everyone was in Meherabad. So they said, no, we don't have the space. All the PC is full. And I know that they said, okay, we have place for you. And that's when I started crying, because I was so, after all this journey, I was so tired, and I was so, and the tears would just come down my face and would not stop. So she says, anyway, you have to go and register in town. So the rickshaw takes me to town, and I go into the office, and they say, and they're very happy to see me, and they say, it's okay, we'll find a place for you and everything. And then Eruch was having tea at that time when I came there. So, and I'm still with tears going down my cheeks. And so they invite me to Eruch to tea, and I know nothing about nothing. I don't know who Eruch is. I don't know who the people are, nothing. So I come there, and I sit, and the tears are coming down, and all these Eruch and all these youngsters are around there and drinking tea, and they serve me tea and biscuits. And I'm trying to eat the biscuits, and I, tears in my throat is like this. And I'm saying, please forgive me. I don't know. I don't know why. I can't help it. I don't know why I'm crying. So Eruch says, don't worry. We'll cry with you. It's okay. And so that was my introduction. And then they told Heather to take me with a rickshaw to Meherabad. They put me in the Dharamshala, and I was passing by Muhammad Damas. He was sitting on the terrace, and he was so delighted to see me, and I was so delighted to see him. And I wanted to come up and say hello to him, and Heather says, no, you can't go up. See, the women are not supposed to come up there. So it was a beautiful, beautiful hello with the tears. So Eruch was so beautiful and shiny, and very, very himself, never playing any games, and taking care of money always, taking care of Baba like a mother, and sitting in the Mandali hall and just talking to us and telling us stories, and being so beautiful and caring for all the Mandali there. So he was quite a man, and the family was beautiful, and all the family. So thank you very much. Thank you, Baba.
That's a beautiful story. I've never heard that, Nicole. Oh, so sweet. Ralph, I'm wondering if you have something to say, being an old timer. You were there back then when that movie was taken, pretty much, yeah?
About Eruch. Hearing your stories, I think particularly Judy is really still carrying the pretty immediate aura of being in Eruch's presence, hearing stories, and Michal in a different way, but still very poignant, very meaningful. Yeah, it sort of leaves me speechless. Put me put me into a dream, not a dream world, but yeah.
Well, I'm wondering,
There, I don't know. Yeah, there's.
go ahead.
I have to say, I just need to be silent for the moment because it's special. Remembering Eruch, you remember everyone. With Mani, yeah. One time, Vesta and I were leaving Meherazad and bicycling, had left out of Meherazad compound and were on that entrance road that must be a good half-mile long, I think, perhaps not greater than a quarter of a mile, I would say, that's covered with trees, and the farmers' fields are all, used to be, I don't know what's there now, used to be farm fields off to the sides of that road, all around the road. And as we left, we'd gotten a couple of 100 yards or so down the road. And here came the trust car with Rano, Mani, and Eruch. And Eruch, Eruch got out of the car, and somehow Vesta was engaged with him, and he started chasing me. And in retrospect, I thought I did the most foolish thing. I thought I ran out into the field. I didn't want him beating me up, I should have ran toward him. This would have been the appropriate thing to do. But that was just my mood. That was the moment. I ran out of the field, and it was freshly plowed and very bumpy, difficult footing. So I didn't run far, and I turned around. I looked at him, and I was just breaking up with laughter, and he was looking at me, and I went back toward him, and they got back in the car. I don't remember what all inspired what was said. It wasn't much, just Jai Baba, how was your day, like that. And then they went on into Meherazad, and Vesta and I continued back to Naga. He was very playful, very, very mischievous. Eruch was very mischievous. Yeah. One time, Eruch was telling stories. And I'd been going through a difficult time. I wasn't sleeping at night, and just whatever ridiculous thing there was to worry about just ate to the very bone of my soul. I was a nervous wreck. I looked like hell and felt like hell. And Eruch was telling stories, and I thought maybe it'll help if I go sit and listen to stories and be with the people. So I sat down. There was just a place there close to Eruch. I was this far from his face. And he started talking about Thanksgiving in America, And my mood was so vile. I had the most absurd response, and that to this day, I said, I don't know, it just blurted out like Satan had gotten hold of my tongue, not like he had. And I said, what the hell would you know about Thanksgiving? You're from India. And God, that I thought, and he looked at me for about a tenth of a second, and that has lasted more than a lifetime. And and then he went on with this story, and I never said another word. And I thought, what did I say? Did I say that? Did I mean? And I never apologized. In my heart, I always still apologize to Bob, to God Almighty. Why what made me blurt out something so disrespectful, out of place? And the room was packed with people, packed with people. Yeah. But, and you know, Eruch knew everything about people, about Baba's lovers and their cultures. He knew my culture far better than I do. He knew all cases.
Baba was stirring up your sanskars and getting them up and out. That's
The
for sure.
steak was on at the top of the pot, had boiled. That stinky stuff had
Yeah.
boiled to the
Because Baba says that when you are so down, how does he say? Rosalie knows how he says that.
yeah. Yeah.
Don't feel down by what I bring up in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, you were staring all your sanskaras. I mean, you were in the right place to do that. And Eruch probably knew that.
I should have sought solace in solitude with Baba to, you know, in that company, and I could have still heard Baba Eruch's voice and been there in the general company of that atmosphere and tried to find out, got to the bottom of my issues of what I was experiencing.
Baba
It was-
wouldn't let you
it was
serve
very
there if he
It was difficult. It was very difficult. Yeah.
Baba would not let you serve there if he thought that you were not behaving. So he
Yeah.
let you serve very close to them, and he brought that whole thing up.
Mm.
So you have to look at it from that angle.
Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's not all sweetness and light. Yeah, I think everybody's.
Yeah.
Well, it's like learning humility. I mean, even now you think of what was with me that I said that. And certainly he was thankful for being around Baba all that time. He knew about Thanksgiving. He was thankful.
Gabriella, you got something to say?
I just love that, Ralph. Thank you. And I've had some experiences where I really lost it at Meherabad, lost it bad, and so much worse than what you did. And the times that I was around, we'll talk about that privately sometime. But when I was the Mandali that were around me, at that time it was Arnavaz, and she just said to me, "You have to have forbearance." That was the word she used for me, forbearance. So, but I almost, and when you told that story, I kind of had the feeling like Eruch would delight in the fact that that happened. Not, it was not negative. I just imagining it, but it's real. You know, it's real. So, yeah, go ahead.
I don't know where they're from, but I will say.
You have to mute. Yeah.
Okay. I remember one time with Eruch, I was so distressed. I just did not measure up. I felt that was my issue. It was about me and my kids. I was just weeping and beside myself, and we were in a crowd, and I ran. I thought it was. I couldn't even see straight. I ran to. It was Erich. I thought it was Bao, and I just threw myself in his arms. I know he didn't. He didn't know what it was about or anything. I mean, he sort of patted me on the back, and I don't remember ever talking to him about what was my issue. But he of course accommodated this hysterical girl. Uh, um, I'm sure he's seen it all.
And I want to say two more things, sort of related, if that's okay, is what I was going to say. When I first came to Meherabad the first time in 1990, that Erich had me come up and tell my story like he did everybody, and but I didn't tell all of it because some of it really didn't show me in a good light. And then many years later, I guess right in the last trip with him, I don't know what year that was, 97, and he was gone in 2001. It might have been it might have been 98 or 99. Anyway, he asked me again to get up and tell my story. And now I'd been with Baba for 8, 9 years, and I had worked through a lot, and I just told the whole thing, which included a bit about me shoplifting, because at the time I was shoplifting, and that was when at the moment I actually came to Baba. Baba had told me at the Baba Center when I first went there, he told me in the picture, stop stealing. From his, directly, stop stealing, and he was trying to warn me, but I came back, and 2 days later, and it was an election day for George Bush Senior, so whatever year that was. Anyway, I went and I stole something really small. It was some weird thing was in my head. I was poor, but I didn't have to shoplift, and so I did it and got caught. Like just a few days
How
after.
old how old were you after
That's the embarrassing part about it. I was like 30 years old. I wasn't like a little kid. Okay, so that's it. It's really embarrassing to tell this story, right? I was kind of in a desperate place at time in my life, and I hadn't really come to Baba, and Baba hadn't started cleaning me up yet. So I told this story, and then but while I was waiting for the police to come, they were holding me, like, I wasn't running, but they were saying, around me saying, the police was coming in the store. All of a sudden, I realized that Baba had warned me, and he was real, because up to that point, I didn't understand how my master, he could be a master out of the body to me. And I always felt like I had to have a master in the body, and how could he communicate with me? And then I had this revelation, and that was like I started crying in joy. And they thought I was crying because I got caught for stealing, but I was crying because that was my moment of coming to Baba. It was my master. So I told that story, and there's much more, but I'll just leave it at that for now. And afterwards, Erich came over to me and said, very good. You told that whole story this time. And then people kept coming up to me like, do you know what I did? I did blah, 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 blah. And everyone was confessing their things to me that they had been keeping inside. And I understood that it's really important to be really honest, with Baba and with the Baba lovers. And anyway, so that's another Erich story. But it also kind of relates to what you were saying, Ralph, about like not showing our best side necessarily. So.
And doing it in Mandali form, in the face of where Baba is sitting and his Mandali is sitting. Judy is waiting.
Erich asked me one time because I'd come in 71 straight out of the Army. I'd been in a MASH unit, the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. And he asked me, Ralph, do you have any Baba stories from your time in the Army? I said, yes. I said, once I took a leave, I went back to the States and I stayed at the Mayor's Spiritual Center most of the time. And then when I returned, it was over Christmas time. And of course, I returned we had a barracks, and we weren't in a war zone at that time. We were in a barracks in Germany, and with the trucks and things parked in a huge garage. And in the barracks, of course, so all the troops were there. And over the time that I'd been on leave over Christmas, we had in the company, you had to have really good mechanics. Your function relied on things working properly. So you had to have good mechanics for these large trucks. And we had one young mechanic. He was from the South. He was a country boy. Name was Joe Savage. He was a very good mechanic. And he was married. And during the time I'd been gone, he got a letter from his wife or from the neighbors that his wife had left him for another man. And they had children. And Joe corresponded with his wife frequently by letter and talked about it. And Joe was like so straight, so Christian, solid, you know. And they used to say when I was young, I was Zoroastrian Paka. That means he was solid, you know, Christian, good person, Joe, and strong. He was a big, strong kid, very muscular. And Joe just went to hell. He went to drinking and doping and going crazy, you know. He'd be out in the hallway in the middle of the night. He'd urinate in the middle of the hallway and cuss and roll around on the floor and scream. And everybody just understood and let him do his thing. And somehow then, during the time I was gone, he broke into my locker, you know, where possessions were, and there was a poster of Baba in there. And somewhere there was a small, you know, artificial Christmas tree. And don't ask me how, but there was a "Don't Worry, Be Happy" card. And I think Joe perched. He found the card. I had Baba literature. We had printed up. Fred Ella helped me get the Universal Message translated into German. And I had it printed and would hand it out to people. And Joe had put a card in this little Christmas tree, and it was electric. He plugged it in, and he laid down on my bunk. I was gone. This was all related to me by my roommates. We had 4 people to a room, and Joe was drunk. He was inebriated. He fell asleep on my bunk, and this little tree had electrical short or something. It caught fire, and a lot of stuff caught fire in the room, I guess, including some of my clothes. And the tree burned up. And so when I got back, Joe came in the room and he told me this story. He said, some of the guys called me Jake. Said, "Jake, you know, I was drunk and I had this Christmas tree, and I put Maher's picture up there on the tree. I plugged it in. I fell asleep. The damn thing caught fire, and it burned to a crisp." It says a lot of stuff burned, but he said, "You know what? Maher's picture did not burn." He says, "I don't know. It's like a miracle, Jake."
Wow.
Picture was right there in the heat of the fire. It did not burn.
Wow.
I said, "That is amazing, Joe. That is amazing." Eruch liked that story a lot. He enjoyed that story. Had it told, would ask me to tell it periodically. Yeah.
Wonderful. Betty, if I can say one or two very short things and then something to share. I'm thinking of Thanksgiving, and Eruch, and I don't have any idea what he knows about American Thanksgiving, but of all the people I've ever met in my life, I think Eruch is the person that knows the most about Thanksgiving. And he so often would say, I'm just beholden to him. I'm just beholden to Baba. And for me personally, the longer I'm living, the longer I've been with Baba, the more that resonates with my own heart of I'm saying this now, I'm just beholden to him for all the wonderful years. And this is my very favorite picture of Eruch. I feel like it captures so much of him. And Betty, maybe you could pinpoint it or whatever you do to make it big. It
Go to speaker.
Coates spotlighted, and I just went blank on his first name.
Win Coates.
Win Coates took this in the early 70s, and it just, there's an openness. So much of what we've shared today about Eruch, I see in this photograph. His humanness, his compassion, his naturalness, and so forth. So I wanted to share that with folks and our remembering Eruch.
That is so beautiful. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Wow.
Yeah.
Here, I used to think he was like, you know, Clark Gable was a movie actor that was very likable and very handsome, you know, carried himself well. And I would call, to me, Eruch was like the Clark Gable of the Mandali, because he was like, you know, he was so, could choose his words and, you know, with such finesse. I mean, yeah, and with such heart, nothing phony. Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to say one thing. I remembered that he never traveled after Baba dropped his body, and Baba had asked him to promise would he take care of Mara and Mani. So he, you know, he had quite a position there, you know, to take care of them.
And one of the things I remember him saying so often toward the last years, when, you know, the beloved God prayer, he'd say more and more and more and more till I am no more.
Oh.
He really, that it wasn't that he wanted to escape from life. He wanted to merge into God, to just, you know, that Eruch, you know, to heck with Eruch. He and Baba, for me personally, we're almost one. I think I learned more about who Mayor Baba is by being, just simply being in Eruch's presence, often silently so. And it was Baba that filled the room.
Wow.
I also want to say another thing that I remembered, that Eruch was staying in the room that was made out of the seclusion after the Manonash building that Baba had put on, asked to be put on Seclusion Hill at the end of the New Life, when he did the end of the Manonash life thing. And then he brought it down because it was too windy, and he completed the seclusion down there. And he also had the Duni Baba with all the religion little buildings that he carried through in the new life, and he had them all put in that journey. And then he let Eruch stay in that room, which Eruch said was not comfortable because it was cold in the winter and warm in the summer. But it was very precious, very, very precious to be in, symbolizing that he was given the Mananash room to live in after Baba worked so hard himself to do the Mananash work for us all, actually, for us all. And I one day he invited me there with the Vana, of course, that was there. The Mandali would never sit with someone without someone else being there also, especially if it's a woman and with a man, and or a man with a woman. So he gave out prasad as little nuts, and like they used to give also in the samadhi. And I don't like nuts so much, but I was given it, so I was eating, and I was sort of munching it while I was sitting there. And he said, "You don't like nuts," and I said, "Yeah, I don't." But I kept eating it all. So yeah, he was actually busy. I think he wasn't personally attached to many because he was really the head man of the whole Meherazad and taking care of everyone and everything. And Bauji really, really respected him. Really, really respected him. And I love to see the Vana taking care of all the things and, like doing everything. And she used to cry so much because he used to say things that would get her spirit down, and she used to cry and still do the things. Serve him and bring him things, and it was just so beautiful. All the Mandali were beautiful. The Mandali that Baba tempered in his own way were just very beautiful. And we are very, very fortunate to have met them. And even if we didn't have contact with them, just saw them a bit far or just had very little contact. And I'm very, very fortunate that Bauji was, that I had this very special contact with Bauji. So I'm very, very fortunate for that. And Baba. And Baba is given. I remember that when I came to Baba, that's one of the things that I was thinking of. Baba said to us, and that is one thing that really held, I really kept, thinking of. Baba said, if you have the right to come, the contact with, the direct contact with the king, don't stop at anyone on the way. Don't stop on anyone on the way. And that's what Baba actually kept saying. And the Mandali also did that, because the Mandali never stood between us and Baba, never. They always would move aside. Mera, Mani, Eruch, Bauji, they would always take themselves aside and point us to Baba. And that is so precious, because we could have been stuck with those people who were so great and so beautiful, and then when they pass away, that's it. But they connected, they made the path, they connected us stronger to and Baba did also, and stronger to Baba. So we have the relationship, the eternal relationship with God, that does not need to be in the body in order to make a relationship, in order to be in contact with us. So thank you, Baba, for training all your Mandali in this way and bringing the beautiful, beautiful souls to work with you. And actually, I think they all, what I see in my mind's eye is that when Baba had to come down to this realm and work here and be the avatar, and he said, who's going to volunteer with me? Who's going to volunteer with me? I need people to work with me. And Eruch said, I'll come. Bauji said, I'll come. And Mera said, I'll come. And Mani said, I'll come. And all these souls came down as a group in order to help Baba in his work. So, yeah, thank you.
I just want to say before I think we're winding up here, that this was a very special sharing session. And Betty, thank you for starting it out with that. And because I feel like and I'm glad it's recorded because we're still close enough to the time of these mandali that it's not turned into myth yet. Like it'll be legend and myth and stories, and it'll change and it'll dilute and all that, but it felt very, very pure, and like all these sharings were, no one was saying, well, I see it this way and I don't know, I see it opposite. They were all very unified because I think we were all really seeing the same thing at this particular time in history. So, thanks.
Thank you, Gabriella. That's a great observation. That's wonderful. Yeah. I just one comment I had to make was that several times listening to it was so warm and wonderful hearing him talk, hearing his stories. And then it would be time to go to Mara's porch for the ladies. Or no, I think it was it was time to go to Mara's porch. And it was always so hard for me to tear myself away from marriage. And it was a very mental sort of, now Baba said that he loved her the most. So it was just on that basis because I just hated to leave, but I'd go. And of course Mara was wonderful. But I was probably more attached to Eruch. I think I don't know. Do you qualify? But it was just a hard moment to go, oh, and leave, and I'd have to tell myself.
The days when Eruch and Mani were in Mandalay Hall, that was hard to pull away from that. But wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I too got invited to go sit in Eruch's, that Mandanash cabin. I think his purpose was he wanted to know who I was. He wanted to, I don't remember there being another Devana or anybody, but it was a very short little time. But yeah, it was just okay. Now it's time for me to know who you are. What and it was short and sweet. That was all.
Was that his bedroom, the Mananash cabin?
Yeah, it was the Mananash. Yeah, I remember. My memory is I sat on the bed, but I could be a little wrong. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it has a bed there. Yeah. That was his room where he lived and where he worked. After he worked with Baba, if Baba would give him anything to work, then he would take it there and he would just, work. When he got that room, of course, because before that he shared a room with others, and that's when he used to, if he had to work, he used to put a blanket over his head and put a flashlight so he can work without disturbing the others from their sleep. Because Baba would give him something to write, and that was the only time that he could do it. And then he would pull the blanket over, put the flashlight, and work so not to disturb others.
What an image. Great. Well, you folks, I don't know. We have maybe 20 minutes more of that movie. I could play it, or I almost feel like it's enough. I'm so full. But what's your
Because you sent the link, you put the link inside, and so each one of us can look at it, but whatever Baba and you and all of you decide.
quite
And what about it? What the other people that we can't see that are here? Do they want to say something?
Margie, were you there when Eruch was there?
Yes, my first trip was 82. I went back for 6 months, 83, 84, and then back in 87. And so I just loved him like you all, and loved hearing your stories. So moving. Thank you.
You're welcome. How about you, Prakash? Surely you met.
No, just like what Marge said. Loved hearing, listening to all your beautiful stories and all that love you give out in the process. So thank you. I mean, I don't have too much interaction. I have seen him many times in Mandalay Hall, listened to his stories and all that stuff. but never so much that I could really share to make it special. I mean, like you all have at a personal level. So, but that's all I have. But one thing interesting, actually, my brother, younger brother, he 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 had a situation in his life where he was trying to decide whether to do, a government job or a private job. He was in the government position in defense and he was getting some money, but then the private one was offering him 3 times or something like that. And then suddenly he was tempted and then he was unable to decide and he sort of thinks quite a bit and couldn't decide. So he went to Eruch asking him what he can do, whether to take up the private job or be in the government position. And Eruch apparently said, look, everybody wants to be with the government. and then he gave him a shove. He sort of pushed him on his chest. I mean, push in the sense, I mean, he probably did it very normally. But then my brother didn't anticipate that and he fell back. He fell to the ground actually on his back. And then he always tells us that, Eruch's that small jab was so strong that I couldn't resist. And then ultimately he decided, he decided to go to the private ones. And Eruch told him, whatever you do, stick to it and don't worry about it. So that's the advice Eruch gave. But don't vacillate. Sorry, there's a bit of noise around, so I may want to stop here and thank you all, Jai Baba.
Thank you, Prakash. Wow, Eruch was so strong. Wow.
I think Anna is writing the book about Eruch. It'll be probably very close to publishing now, so it must be very interesting because she did. We're all hearing that Eruch was not too close to too many because he was so busy. So he was giving out in Mandalay Hall to many, but in one-to-one, there were few people that he was very, very close with. Steve Klein, I think, and Gary and Craig and all the people who used to serve there in the trust, and Rustam Falahati and Devana and Heather probably, and so all the people who were residents and helping and volunteers. For us, he was just sharing all these stories in Mandalay Hall and giving us the feeling of this closeness to Baba. So his book by Devana would probably be really great. And Gary was so close, and he made Eruch laugh so much, and Eruch really appreciated his different candid way of doing things, and he always had him by his side, and Gary just passed away, so probably Eruch has been saying hello to him in Baba's Darbar, and so I'm glad for Gary that he also joined and left the body and
There's a video. Gary made a video talking about Eruch. I found it last night. If you Google, you go to YouTube, go to Eruch Jessawala, there are about 30 or 40 videos, lots of videos. But Gary particularly the whole video was Gary talking about Eruch. So that's.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
It shows the force of the Advent that we're given so much, even through the technology, about the mandalay, to see Baba on film, to see his beautiful movement. It's like, I think that's the high point of our, of the good part of mine has created that we can have him on film, and we could have had his voice if, it was just dismissed and it was to be silent. So, yeah. But to see him physically move around, and there's only like really that one in 1937 where he's that floating walk, He's just walking, and he has that regal shawl on or whatever, and he is just so the beloved. It's just like, whoa. But he still was walking like that in 52. And even after that, he walked well until, Sakori, Satara. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Thank you, Betty.
any last little? So I'm gathering that you guys will finish that movie. I really encourage you to copy the link so you've got
Are
it.
you going to play it, Betty?
Well, I was just saying maybe not. I can. Shall I?
I'd like to see it, sure.
You mean also
Yeah.
I'll just continue from where I was then.
Okay.
Oh, you saw it, the first part, right, Ralph?
Some of it, yeah.
Right up and talking about the lepers. That's where we ended off.
Wouldn't you want to copy the link?
I was watching. I thought that it was Eric and Eddie Luck
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's the movie.
in the trust compound. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was talking about bathing and
Right.
protect the water. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can play it.
Okay, I saw that video, so I will say
Yeah.
goodbye. Thank you very much. And thank you, Baba. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Betty. Thank you all for your shares. Thank you.
We'll see you all.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you.
Oh,
Jai Baba.
wonderful sharing
Jai
time.
Baba.
Thank you. Okay. So I'll play it and folks can stay or leave, and you've got the link. That's the important thing. You can play it for yourselves again.
And thank you. I did get the Jamie link.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's today too. Oh my, no, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Today, Jamie Noel. Yeah. Hi, Eva.
Today at 2. Hello. Thank you. I haven't added anything. I've never met Eric or been to India, but I've really enjoyed listening to everyone, and I really felt transported there, and I felt like I knew them. And I guess thank you all for your shares.
Who knows maybe you were with Eric recently. Who knows where we've all been last lifetime.
Well, I felt the love, so thank you.
Don't we all? Isn't it just
Yeah, we all do. Thank you. Thank you, Jai Baba.
so
Yes.
I continue the movie. Where did Ralph go? He's here.
It's funny. He's probably still here.
He's here. He's here.
Oh yeah, he's here. He's here. No, I'm just saying, do you know where you are at now? Things are changing very fast, I mean, this is the force of the Advent, I would say. Maybe it's just moving, Betty. Wow.
Well, are we lucky? Aren't we fortunate to know about
Oh
that?
yeah, we are
How
fortunate.
else would
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't know how fortunate. We're just
Okay, for those who want to stay, Ralph, I'll continue the movie where it left off. Let's see. Are we here? Let me think. Is that right? Oh no, I know. Excuse me. I gotta do something.
See, it doesn't matter about the size of how many are here, because then there could be more shares. It's quite something.
Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll have to. Okay. I think I'm getting it right now. Let me do this.
Thank you, Betty. Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba. Oh, but I gotta. Okay, now we're watching. Okay.
About Baba's compassion with the mad when he would collect and have the mad people brought to him, the insane.
Yes, when Baba collected the mad, the same stories again, naturally the mandli around him. After all, what are these people who were around him? What were they doing? They had to do nothing but to do whatever he ordered them to do. And what I felt when Baba contacted the mad thing is that, to begin with the story, the most important thing is Baba giving us directions to go and hunt the mad men and bring them to him. Well, it's the same story as we go out hunting for the musts or the lepers or the poor or the sadhus or the saints, you see. We go from place to place, try to pick them up, put them in any conveyance like a horse carriage, a tonga as we call, or a bullock cart or a car or a bus, and bring them to Baba. So naturally, we collect a lot, say a group of say 10 of the mad, and bring them to Baba. As soon as they are brought to Baba, they are sometimes very mild, sometimes they express their violence through hand gestures, or they have got expression, wild expression in their eyes and so forth. But I found out that the way that Baba handled these mad people, he handled them with such tenderness, with such love, that even their madness was, so to say, affected favorably. That they became almost mild in presence of Baba. While we knew the difficulties with which we brought them, and we wondered whether they were really mad in presence of Baba, or what had happened, were we mistaken in bringing such people to Baba. So we found that in Baba's presence, they somehow or other calmed down. And the way that he would handle them with love, and they would respond with love, with affection, to such an extent that I have that experience, that just as when a dog, is given food and looked after well, and it tries to follow the master, so also even the mad people who cared for none, whenever Baba would come, they would just wait for his coming. As soon as he came and he went from one place to another, they would follow him. They would leave their seats and follow him. They would take cognizance of his presence in their midst and just be with him. And then Baba would play with them, joke with them, just put his hands round their shoulders and walk with them, or just say, take a bet with them, that, well, you will be all right, Well, there is nothing wrong with you. These people are mad people, Baba would say. These people who look after you are mad people. You are very sane. Don't worry, Be happy, he would say. Be happy. Well, that gave them some sort of, inner help, or whatever psychological difference that made. I couldn't register that, but I could register it, I could witness it through the change that took place in them. How it worked, I did not know, but the results could be seen.
Also,
and he would not only do that, they would know, they would register that he is the one who is the Lord over all these sane people, so-called sane, as well as the so-called affected people who they were. But he being the Lord, how is it possible for him to clean their toilets? How is it that he condescends to bathe them and crop their hair and all that? He would look after them, he would scrub their backs, he would clothe them properly, bathe them properly, What is it? Who is this person? So even the mad started thinking in terms of who the man is, which is an impossibility for a mad man to give cognizance to a person in a sane manner, in a rational way. And that's how, before my eyes, I have witnessed such scenes that these mad, who were brought as mad, returned as sober and saner persons.
This reminds me of some of the people that are attracted to Baba after taking many, many drugs, and how fast the mind is working. Baba said, mind working fast is mad, and under the influence of many drugs, the mind begins to go very fast, like a madman almost, but not quite. And how when they are drawn to Baba and they begin to feel his love, they begin to gradually feel that the drugs, the intoxication of the drugs, are not necessary anymore, but it's the love that they are really in need of. And this is what begins to calm him down, apparently, and draw what I've seen many of the Westerners that were on drugs to Baba by just looking at his picture or hearing his words.
Well, it is possible, I should say, because I have seen with the actual madmen. These people of whom you speak, as the boys and girls who took drugs, well, they were not mad.
No.
Well, but they were sane, but because they were under the influence of drugs, you see, their mind started working fast and faster still. But then, when they came to know of Baba and his compassion and his love, naturally they discarded the drugs because his love, the stories they heard of him, or the influence of love, which is still pervading on the earth, you see. Because as Baba said, even though he has left the body, physical body, the God-man's physical presence on earth has its own pressure. His love, his compassion, his everything, you see, is still there. That is tangible, that can be felt.
Also,
because we are still in the era of the God-man.
See, also, like, sometimes people feel that it's a madman, it's better off to be a madman, and he's away from the problems of the world and so on, and they feel that he is in a different state, and therefore he doesn't suffer in a sense where it's really considered to really be a lot of suffering. What of this here?
No, that is wrong, you see. Madman suffers a lot, as Baba has said. He suffers tremendously much more than an ordinary human being who is supposed to suffer, because his mind is working very fast. He cannot decide things. He cannot think rationally, you see. He does not know. He does not. He is not responsible for his actions, no doubt. We say that he is not responsible for his actions, but his actions are correlated to the fast working of his mind, you see. And because the mind works fast, he does many actions that are not proper. They suffer. But to think that they are not suffering or that they are not cognizant of their suffering, well, it is not proper to think that in that fashion, you see. Because their suffering is terrible, as Baba has said. Why do I also say that they do suffer is because I have witnessed their suffering in a way from their faces, their facial expressions. When they come to Baba, we find that they are suffering souls who have come to Baba, who have been brought to Baba by us. When they leave Baba, after Baba gives them orders to leave, they are persons whom we have witnessed as having calmed down, cooled down, having had a smile on their faces, a cheerful way of contacting other human individuals, you see. Yes. When they came to Baba, they didn't want the world with them. They were their own world, you see. But when they left with the world to be among the worldly. So that's how, you see, Baba would work with the mad people. You see. Why he could do that? Why he could make the mad feel that he is theirs? Because he would become one of them. That is the secret, you see, and that only the God-man can be. He has to become one with, he is that. He cannot dare to be other than what they are, you see, because he is one of them.
So it's through this compassion of Baba's that you began to recognize his avatar.
Yes.
You would say.
Yes. Through the expressions of his compassion, his infinite love, his mercy, his kindness, all this made me feel that he must be what he says, the Ancient One. And then, in the later stages, I became quite convinced about his avatarhood. Because any ordinary person, you see, expresses his affection, which we call love. Any ordinary person expresses his patience. There are limitations to that. Then there is an extraordinary person who expresses the same thing with a greater degree or greater intensity. But then there are limits to that too. But when, in the case of Baba, I found that there were no limitations. We tried to exasperate him if we wanted to and test him. But then his patience stood the test. His love stood the test. His affection stood the test. Everything, you see, we found that we had limitations, whereas his attributes had no limitations. And that's what made me feel convinced of his Godhood. Indirectly. Because God is infinite patience, God is infinite love, God is infinite kindness, his beauty, everything. So if God is this, then this man who has this these attributes, he must be God. So that's how I got convinced of Baba's divinity and his being God-man. Ada asks me whether I can recollect a day when I could call it to be the happiest day with Baba. To be very fair and frank, I must confess that I cannot recollect any such day, you see. Because to be with Baba was a great privilege. To be near him and to abide by his wishes and to obey his orders was our happiness. Of course, when we talk of happiness, it's a relative term. There is also misery. There is also hardship. Because these are all relative terms. But I must tell you one thing, that I really felt happy on several occasions when he would say that I was his. That filled me not with the fleeting joy, you see, but that gave me strength. And the strength that I had through these words encouraged me to pass my years in his presence. Because I must confess that to be with God-man is not an easy task. To abide by his wishes, to carry out his pleasures is not a joke. It's not easy at all. Only if he wills it can one be with him. Otherwise, there are innumerable instances when daring persons who have come to him to stay with him, who have dedicated their lives, who say that they have surrendered, they have failed because his pleasure is not there. No sooner he expresses his pleasure, we can have the courage to be near him and live with him. And when he said that I was his, well, that was my happiest day. Moreover, he always used to say that, hold on to me, catch hold of my hand, catch hold of my daman. Don't let it go. But my past experience would always give the answer, Baba, I implore you to catch hold of my hand, because I am such a weakling that I have no strength in my grip. So it is, if you were to hold on my arm, it was impossible for me to be away from you. But if I embolden myself to say that I will hold on to your daman, there is a possibility of my grip getting loose over your daman and you slipping away from me. So there another day came when he gave me an assurance that, well, I will hold on to you. And these are the little things, you see. These are the little things that made me stick to him. To say that these are the little things that made me stick to him is also false. It is he who made me stick to him. It was his grace that kept me near him. It was his pleasure that made Eruch be with him. Otherwise it is impossible, I should say, impossible to be with the God-man if his pleasure is not there. Well, what else had you asked me?
Coach him.
Well, it's a very good query from you, Irvin. First assurance that Baba has given is that whosoever remembers me must know for sure, certainty, that he will be with him. No sooner one remembers him, one finds that one is communicating with him, is in communion with him. Then another assurance he has given is that whosoever repeats the prayer, Master's prayer, will benefit from the repetition. Third assurance has given is that read all my works, read all the messages that I have given, read all the discourses that I have given, and from that try to keep in contact with me as much as possible. Try to find out the ways that pleased me. Try to find out what made me happy and what I disliked.
Did Baba ever speak to you about after he would drop his body? Did he ever say anything to you about that? About after he left his body?
Yes, he did say that after he would leave his body, there would be many people coming in his name, trying to contact him, trying to be near him, but that will be too late for them, for their thinking. They would feel that they have lost the chance, but they should not feel any distress over these things, because he says that I, being God, am eternal, had come as God-man with the body, had condescended to come as man amongst men. Body has dropped. That doesn't mean that God is no more on earth. God eternally is. And because he is, his love is there. His compassion is there. His presence is there. Because how can you call Baba the God-man and say that he is no more amongst us? Baba said that he, being God, having come as God-man, can drop his body as man, but as God he lives eternally, not only in the hearts of those who love him, but also in the hearts of those who do not even know about his presence. For one day they will also know his presence. That's how we find, Arvind, that people who have not heard of Baba say for a long time while he was on earth, that there are many boys and girls who have just come to know of him. And it seems that they have actually fallen in love with this so-called God-man, who is no more in his physical presence. And from the stories that we hear, from the contacts that we have made with such people, we find that Baba's love has touched their hearts, that has drawn them from a distance of thousands of miles, you see, to India, to pay their homage to him. How is it possible that a man who is no more in his body can draw people to him? It's not possible for an ordinary man. It must be his love that must be touching their hearts that draws them so close to him.
Eruch, there is a question that probably a lot of people would like to have the answer for, and that is, did you ever feel in the course of the time that you've been with Baba that you wanted God realization or liberation or some sort of divine experience?
Oh, what a funny question, you see, and especially to Eruch. Eruch came to Baba not for God realization. Eruch did not know that he was going to be with one who is God. Eruch came to Baba. Mind you, I say Eruch came to Baba. Baba is a very loving personality, you see. He is my mother, my father, my brother, my friend, my companion, my everything, including God. But I never came to him to seek God or God realization. I always craved, yes, this reminds me, I always craved to be in his presence. There's no doubt about it. One day, it so happened that the Mandali was sitting in front of Baba, and Baba had the pleasure to ask the Mandali what each one wanted from him. So, well, some said that they just wanted to obey him. Some said that they wanted God. Some said that they wanted God realization. I remember having said that I would want from you the boon that I may serve you as long as I am in body. Then there was another person, you see, a young lad who had just come to Baba, and he was from a very poor family. And he says that, Baba, I would want to have a horse carriage so that I can earn my livelihood when I grow old. And I must tell you now at this instance that he did own a horse carriage, and Baba and we sat when one day we went to his place for a must hunt, you see. And we went to his place and we found all of a sudden through accident that he was owning the Tonga, you see. And says, hello, you own this? I said, yes, I had asked Baba and I own it. And it's a fact that there was another person from Bangalore who said that Baba, he would like to do a roaring business. And mind you, he was just an ordinary person who we couldn't even give a thought that he would be owning a store or something like that, you see. So now he owns a big store and he does very good business. So they were very young, mind you, at that time. They didn't have any sense as to what they are asking from whom. They were about 11 years, one was 10 years, another one was 11 years old, you see. But then what we find now, you see, that man really owns a store.
What did you ask?
I asked, as I told you, that I asked for a boon, that Baba may grant me that boon, that I may serve him as long as I am in my body, you see. And Baba was very happy with our answers, especially of the answers of the Mandali, you see. But then he rejoined it. He says, remember one thing, if ever on your own, if you were to ask me or anybody, ask God a boon, first of all, it is futile for any of you to ask anything from God.
There we are. Okay. Well, that's where it ends, folks.
Really?
Yeah.
Right in mid-sentence. And there is no more. Is there another tape following it?
Many. There are many. If you
But
find
yeah.
if you find
Oh, good. Maybe if you, how did you find, those are the Lux, who has possession of that now?
Archive is part of the Los Angeles group. I guess they took those films and
Or at least a copy, something, yeah.
all you have to do is go to iTunes. I'm sorry, YouTube, and
Yeah,
search for Eruch Jessawala, and
yeah.
any of those will come up. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And then when you
Cool.
open one, you'll get the whole series. It'll
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
ones. Yep.
Jay,
Okay, folks, I think we should probably stop recording. Jai Baba, Avatar Meherabad Ki Jai.
but TJ.
Okay, and wrap it.